Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to leave it a few seconds more, and we'll just allow everybody to join. It's always that period of those few seconds on when do you start and when do you.
Connecting to audio.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So we'll just give it a few seconds. I'll watch my numbers, and as they're increasing and not at a rapid rate or not, so I'll start it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I might start with 10:32. So we'll start. Just good morning, everybody who's joined us, and welcome to our first webinar for 2026. My name is Ciara Drohan. I'm the president of the IHI, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the webinar, which is Multiple Leaders, One Commercial Strategy. So I'm delighted to be joined by our panel this evening, or this morning. I'm wishing my life away. Would it be this evening? And it will be chaired by Amanda O'Donovan. Amanda is a commercial consultant within the hospitality industry, and I'm sure is known by many. And she specialises in revenue strategy, systems, and process implementation. She brings to this panel an extensive experience in guiding teams through complex commercial strategies and challenging projects. And she's also obviously a standing member of the IHI and works closely with us. Amanda will introduce our panel, which is quite an esteemed panel this morning for 2026. Amanda, thank you for joining us this morning and for chairing today's discussion. And I'll hand over my baton to you. And everybody, you're very welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, Ciara, and good morning, everyone. And yes, I'll echo Ciara's welcome. Hopefully you're all doing very well. I'm here in a very rainy Cork. Hopefully the weather is a bit better where you are. So yeah, we're here this morning to talk all things commercial strategy. Don't worry, there's going to be no spreadsheets on the screen. Nobody's going to be tested on RevPAR or TrevPAR formulas, although feel free to pop into the chat if you know them. Hopefully you do. But when we talk about commercial strategy, and look, when I speak about commercial strategy or revenue culture, and I know those words, and phrases can sometimes be overused. We're not just talking about rates or channels or forecasts. We're really talking about how a hotel thinks, right, day to day, how it actually operates. So who owns revenue? How do decisions get made? Why are certain decisions made? How well do departments really talk to each other, right? Without endless meetings, without everyone being copied on an email. So the panel this morning really, I guess, brings together like four roles that all influence revenue and commercial sustainability. Sometimes beautifully aligned, and if we're being very realistic, sometimes with a bit of healthy tension, okay, which is what an old CEO of mine
Healthy
used to call it.
tension. Oh,
Healthy
yeah.
tension. So today isn't about right or wrong. It's not about, one department, having more influence than another one. It's about what actually works in real hotels with real teams, real cost pressures, real guests. So that's really, and I know that the panel this morning are really eager to share their insights with you. So I'll kick off by introducing our lovely panel this morning, and again, thank you to everyone on the panel for joining us. So we have Louise Hassett, Commercial Director with Dromoland Castle Resort, Vanessa Davis, Director of Revenue in Glenlow Abbey, Seamus Redmond, Marketing Manager in Cashel Palace, and Garrett Power, Managing Director in Muckross Park Hotel, and all with beautiful, very realistic backgrounds as well, if I must say so. Yeah, and so really
Sitting here in the drawing room.
Yeah. Showcasing your properties very well this morning. So thank you for that. So okay, we'll kick off. And Louisa, I might start with you if you don't
Sure.
mind, just to kind of open the discussion. And actually, I should remind everyone, please do pop into the chat if anyone has any questions or feedback as we go through. We'll keep an eye on it, and we will do a Q&A afterwards as well. So Louise, look, I guess you hold the role of kind of commercial director with Dromoland Castle Resort, and
Yeah.
I know there has been very recently a very strong focus on
hmm
aligning those teams across the business and kind of bring that commercial mindset across all of the teams. Just curious, what prompted that shift or highlighted that kind of need for change, and I guess what other departments are kind of assisting you in that, because you can't do it alone, I guess. So do you want to just,
No.
yeah,
One
yeah,
thing you definitely can't do it alone. There is a team around me and behind me and in front of me at all times helping to push. So this is what really started the whole conversation was we were looking at our KPIs and looking at our KPI structure. And
Mhm.
in looking at that, we started the conversation around accountability and business ownership and what does it mean to have a commercial mindset. And that then led us down another conversation of, well, what do we have in place? What works for our teams currently? What information are they getting? What does that information, when they do get, tell them? Does it tell them the whole picture? Does it tell them a piece of a picture? Do they know how to answer questions when we're posing the questions? And most importantly, are they involved in the process from the beginning? So do they know how we came to a decision? Do they know how we came to these labor standards to then hold them accountable as we move forward? To then own that within the business, own that within their departments.
Mm.
And again, what impact can they have in terms of revenue, ownership, right across the board from top down? So we really did start with, when it came then very quickly on top of us, down to the labor side of things, because it's always first and foremost is labor. It's a massive cost within our businesses. How do we manage it? So we expanded the budget team and the labor decision team to be wider. So we went into our HODs, into our supervisors within each department to form part of the process of creating those labor standards and understanding what is working in their areas and what they need for their areas to be successful as we move into 2026. That then formulated part of the budget and the overall in terms of costs, our forecasting rooms, how everything fits together, where we're getting the business from, to give them an end result. And as part of that end result, they came to the table to present their department, their budget, where they saw costs increasing, where they saw costs decreasing, why they needed labor, when they needed to bring it on board, why they felt they needed to bring it on board from there. Again, in terms of training, they needed X amount of time. And we had that open discussion. And that really did lead into them understanding how the business works as a whole, but also their impact as a department, how that has in the business, plus how they run. From there, we were like, this is all great. We've our budget done. Everyone's done their presentation. We're like, it's not really just an off you go and manage it from here on in, and I'll send you a report at the end of the month and you made it or you didn't make it. We really were like, we need to actually now go back, as I said earlier, work with finance, work with HR. This is a culture shift. This is bringing all our people together. So in working with HR, it was, what do we need to do in terms of training? So does everyone know how to do labor? Do we know how to forecast our rooms? Yes or no? Who needs to be trained? Who doesn't need to be trained? And a larger part of that was revenue. How does revenue work within the resort? How does that commercial mindset come into play? How do all the pieces of the puzzle fit together and how do I impact it? And that's where you're either directly bringing in revenue or you're indirectly helping to bring in the revenue. So everyone from our grounds and gardens team who are out there, manicuring the golf course, setting flowers, having our flower pots all looking beautiful throughout the summer and through the winter, they have an indirect, they have an impact onto what we're charging. So between it's our cup of coffee, it's the overall guest experience. There's a story behind it. The same, we're in there, we're doing our daily briefings. Do we know what dishes in F&B have the best margin? So if we're asked for a recommendation in the meat section or in the fish section, is the one we're saying the one that's best for the business? And how can we bring that more to the fore and really help everyone understand that they have a part to play? And even though they think they don't, they really do. Even the front desk reservations, because how we're tracking the business that we bring in through those reservations can help decide what markets we may now look to explore into. So making sure our market codes and our source codes are correct, that we have clean data. We really went back to the beginning. Re-looking at everything, from front desk, make sure we have all the country codes, the nationalities. If there's a spike in a certain area that we're like, hold on, there's a spike. We haven't seen this before. What does this mean? Bringing that data to the sales team to say, guys, listen, this is what we've seen. Do you want to do a little investigation to see what's happening? Is it worth exploring or no? And it was ad hoc. It was through X, Y, and Z. Some of it has led to, when we're looking 3 years down the line, saying that is a market that we do see a growth in. We've now seen it year on year on year, and it is more of an organic. So it's something that we started to look at as part of our 3 to 5 year sales strategy. That information informed that. but we wouldn't have that information without everybody else playing their
Playing
part
the
in the
part.
team as well.
Sure.
So in December, we worked hand in hand actually with the Innovate Rooms to really create a session for our leaders to set out the expectations for the year, what they were going to be asked, what the reports would now look like that were coming out, when those reports would come out, what questions they would be asked, where they could find the information.
Sure.
And finance are working with myself in tandem on that. From my side, then, it is really bringing the data to life. It's not just about numbers. It's not just about things that we can send out through email or talk about.
Yeah.
Each piece tells a story and each piece is connected. And is it connected in the right area at the right time? And that's hugely important. You know,
It is,
I could,
yeah.
you know, the housekeeping team know what the ADR is, and you know, the average rate every person that's potentially staying in this room is paying this.
Sure.
You know, it's a huge part of it. And as I said, it is a culture shift. So
It is.
our training for the year is centered around commerciality, business, and owning your department as if it was your business
As
that
if it
you were
was your business.
operating.
Yeah, and I think and I think the really interesting piece of this as well is that, HR and finance
Hmm.
are involved in
Yeah,
it as well, because there is a training element to it. And I think
yeah.
everyone, if you are trying to bring that commercial focus, you
Hmm.
do need to take it back, strip it back,
Yeah.
around that. Love what you said just around the clean data. And I know
Oh,
it can be very boring for people. It's like
very
key,
boring,
key,
but
but really, really key. And I think
mm,
from a revenue perspective, and actually, Vanessa, I might bring you in on this, because I guess from a lot of the time, like revenue, like as Louise said, the data, the metrics, the KPIs, they're often the foundation of building that commercial awareness. And that typically sits with either finance or revenue. So, like, I'm wondering from your perspective as kind of director of revenue, all the areas that Louise was speaking about around the accountability and the metrics, how do you get teams outside revenue to really listen to the numbers and understand kind of why they matter? How do you manage that on a day-to-day basis in Glenlow?
Yeah, I suppose it's about making the data relevant to them.
Mm,
No point going to your front desk team unless they're quite experienced in talking about ADR, RevPAR, occupancy. They won't understand it. So
mm,
it's finding different ways to make it important to them. And I think upselling touches a lot on that. If you have a good upselling process where maybe everybody gets, €2 if the hotel fills. You track it that way differently instead of saying to them, I want 100% occupancy, I'm at 96. If you go to them and say, we need to sell 5 more rooms and you'll
mm,
get this reward if you help that. And tracking that with the likes of bar charts rather than occupancy percentages or things that they can physically see.
mhm,
Like if they look at week on week and see the growth in a bar chart, it's much easier than them looking at a percentage that doesn't really matter to them.
mhm,
And it's bridging the gap, I suppose, about what they do and what they don't know, like their room types, things like that. To them, okay, they are different room type categories, but do they understand the financial difference of those room types and, what their comp grade might impact? We spoke a little bit about the pace, I suppose, of the luxury leisure market. It's coming in
mhm,
quite slow. So instead of panicking and maybe comp upgrading somebody to a deluxe room or a suite, it's understanding that maybe if you hold out, that guest will pay that rate.
sure.
And bringing it right back as well. I know Louise touched on housekeeping, but
Mm,
your housekeeping department to understand the rates they're getting for their room. Like if they know, their suite client is paying X amount, they're going to take a little bit more pride in that room. Um,
mhm,
and that'll help then with your online reputation. It'll help with your reviews and it'll help with
mm.
your business coming after that, the value
yeah.
for money perception.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's like so, like you're kind of naturally teeing up the next question just because you spoke about the reputation piece as well. And I think, I've definitely found, and actually, Seamus, I might come to you on this piece, because I've definitely found over the past number of years, and I've been saying it, whether it's client work or delivering training, that I'm spending more and more time with marketing teams, in properties and bringing them into the commercial conversation. So I know it plays that kind of very crucial role in kind of both brand storytelling and performance. And I guess for you in Cashel Palace, like you're in a competitive, luxury market, and we were talking this morning about how that market, maybe maybe is a bit slower or maybe a bit more uncertain. So from your perspective, how do you strike the balance between really, rich brand storytelling? I mean, really creating gorgeous content and images and like all the fluffy stuff, right? All the lovely stuff, the
Yeah.
emotional connection. How do you balance that with the real need to drive measurable commercial results?
Well,
How do you strike that?
I think it says a lot that you yourself, with that kind of commercial hat on, are working more and more with marketing teams anyway, Amanda. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
because storytelling is performance lever, you know?
yeah,
It's as simple as that, really. I mean, we are kind of using all this great storytelling for that kind of future brand building and generating future demand and shaping kind of the guest perception of who we are and what we're about. And what that does is that increases their willingness to engage with us in the first place.
mm,
And it also increases the willingness to actually pay and what they pay, you know. So in terms of linking storytelling and marketing to commercial results, that's the pipeline of that, you know what I mean? In terms of like those purely commercial KPIs, your ADR, and also bed nights, I mean, they're two of the things that we're all forever looking at, right? And when you get that sweet mix right, it kind of leads to the revenue. So in terms of how do we, as we move forward, and we all have, the rates that we set year on year,
mm,
and we all only have a set amount of rooms, right? It's how do we continue to grow into the future, expand what we do and expand the offering of what we do. And I think the finance people and the link between marketing and the commercial side of things is ADR in the middle. It's kind of like in the Venn diagram. And I think brand and storytelling has a massive part to play then in that, in terms of how we, like I say, shape customer perceptions. And I suppose it's understanding then all those magical parts about our properties that we can focus on as
mm,
brand pillars to be able to drive that story forward. But then I love also the concept of what Louise was talking about, which is our people. I think our
mm.
people are kind of the ones that deliver the storytelling for us when we're not around. I consider myself like a digital concierge, right? So I'm kind of sitting in the background, and we're engaging with everybody. And shout out to the other digital concierges out there this morning as well. But we're all sitting in the background, delivering the storytelling, connecting the dots for people, being as useful as possible in every touch point of that guest journey. But then it's the people on the ground then are the ones actually delivering the story in person as well. And I always see two different types of people. They're the ones that understand the margins and they understand the best possible product to get in front of people, and they're the the drivers. But then you've also got the people whose strength is in adding value to the actual guests themselves, and they're the ones who are often could be a local, or they've just got a bit of crack in them, or they just have this some sort of like magnetism to them that can really draw people in, deliver a nugget of gold or a little story or something that adds to the overall experience for someone, and that can have a longer lasting impact on them than maybe a product that they enjoyed during their experience at our property. So being able to kind of distill down what we know as marketing managers, to be able to let that story flow down throughout the staff and the body of people working on the floor, or even working backwards, listening to our staff, learning from their
Yeah.
stories
Mm.
and what they're saying to people. They can often come all the way back up to the top of the funnel, and be used as part of our kind of awareness generation of the hotel. And they can be absolutely gems, or just little moments that drive actual results, you know.
Yeah, I love your phrase, your term digital concierge. There's no doubt
Yeah.
we're going to see that role being
Mm.
advertised in the next couple
Yeah,
of years.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
heard it here first. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
But curious, James, because you mentioned around the brand storytelling, and I guess how do you ensure that, okay, Cashel Palace is a brand, and to be fair, you do amazing work around from a destination perspective as well. So, like you said, like the brand pillars, how do you ensure that each team member is aware of what they are, or and how they can, I guess, communicate those in a very natural way to the guest, so that what
Yeah,
you're
well, I
saying
mean,
at a digital is actually what people experience.
yeah, I think it's two fronts. I feel like we can do the more typical stuff that you might have within the hotel mechanism of kind of having those catch-ups at town hall meetings, sharing kind of new developments. Like there's new tourism initiatives between Tipperary and Kildare at the moment that, you know, that our next town hall will centre around delivering this fantastic new kind of levers for them to be able to kind of utilize and chat to people about and make them aware. But then there's also a growing number of our staff that follow us digitally, you know, so like they're actually following us all on Instagram. They're following the internal kind of content that we share with our teams and LinkedIn and everywhere else as well. And I find that I've heard people on the ground referencing something that they definitely only saw because we shared it on our Instagram page or on TikTok, you know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's a fantastic way of kind of keeping everybody in the loop anyway, by actually living that story and making sure that your brand pillars are actually clear in terms of the content that you deliver in the first place.
Yeah.
But having them kind of engaging with that content internally is fantastic, you know, and it's something that I never really kind of thought about until, you know, you have a conversation with someone and they tell you, I've seen that you guys share this, or we're doing this, and that's fantastic. And then hearing people share that information with guests then is fantastic as well. So it's the awareness of what it is that you're actually doing, and then we can have formal settings like town halls or team meetings. And it's kind of like when everybody meets up before service and we're talking about this is what's on the menu tonight, but here's a couple of little things that are really going to kind of resonate with people, or people are going to find really interesting. It's the same when you have those little team meetings or little huddles or whatever the case is. You kind of get down to business, but it's always nice to kind of leave with a little something that can strike a conversation with someone, or spark someone's imagination, you know. So between that and then living your truth of actually delivering those brand pillars clearly and distinctly through your own marketing, your staff are super clever and super engaged and switched on. Everybody is living in their mobile phones as well, same as your staff, even though they lock their phones away, I'm sure, when they come to work, you know. Exactly, yeah. But it's an important communication tool as well, and that's how they actually pick up on some of the stories that they then want to share, you know.
I hadn't, you know what, I'm so glad you spoke to like the formal communication and the informal. I actually hadn't thought about your team following you digitally as well, you know, in terms of those, because that's exactly where they're living. I mean, you know, when you say it, I'm like, oh, it completely makes sense. But you know, I hadn't kind of thought of it, so it's a great one. Really interesting. And I guess, Garrett, from your perspective, you're hoping that everyone has their phones locked away during service. But I might come to you, Garrett, because look, as managing director, you're in Muckross Park Hotel. Like, you're in a busy multi-market hotel environment. So you know, you're definitely that leader that is making sure that all the team are performing, both from a guest experience perspective and commercially as well. So curious, just from your perspective, how do you make sure that, you know, everything that everyone's been speaking about, that commercial awareness, how do you ensure that it actually filters down through a very operationally focused team without overwhelming them? How do you practice that, I guess, in Muckross Park?
Well, Amanda, good morning. Great to be with you all this morning. I've learned a lot from my fellow panelists already. Well, firstly, I'd remind myself daily that all of our managers are far better at running their departments than I am. So my job essentially is not to complicate their lives, and quite often it's to stay out of their way. But you referenced, like in Muckross and in Killarney generally, the place is relentless. The mix is very eclectic. Like, on any day we're at this hotel, you can have American leisure guests picking off the Ring of Kerry off their bucket list, or you can have golfers spring to get out for a tight tea time, or that's been 2 years in the planning, all under the same roof. So commercial awareness for us and instilling it in the team has to be simple, has to be relevant and human, really connect. So our most important meeting on a daily basis is our ops meeting every day at 11 o'clock. And that's where alignment really happens. And we focus on 3 questions: who's in the building and why, what do they need from it, and how does that affect your role and your department, and how you can contribute to the operation on any given day. So to Louise's point about communication earlier, like, people understand why something matters, they don't feel overwhelmed. You want to feel everybody included. So like that could be a housekeeper that it's a late checkout that day because it's protecting a 5 night stay because they've got a late flight from Shannon, or it's a great bar experience at an event that would potentially lead to a wedding or another event next year. So we like to think of it as commercial thinking, but without ever using the word English. So that's how we don't overwhelm the team with that. It becomes embedded in the operation, it becomes part of our daily lives. And then that's true communication as well. So again, I spoke about it earlier. We keep communication very open now. You know, James spoke about it. Everyone's following you online anyway. Like there's no secrets anymore. You know,
No.
you get a bad review, you get a good review. Everybody knows about it. So there's no secrets here at Muckross. People know where we stand on guest feedback. They also know everything about our financial metrics. Like we share the information daily, quarterly, town halls, all of that. So we know if we have a tricky quarter coming up, we know if we have a great quarter coming up. So everybody feels included and involved. We also empower our teams. I think the best hotels in this country, and we've some fantastic hotels. Core of their success is empowerment. We empower our teams to act first, explain later. And, you know, we all know that trust pays back tenfold. And we repeat that message and it becomes absolutely intrinsic to the operation here at the hotel. So really it is about communication. And that's how we tend not to overwhelm them, Amanda.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm taking copious notes as well, just, you know. But just I love your three questions, you know, that that daily ops meeting, like who's staying, why they're staying, how can I impact, or you know, that really hones it down. I guess it makes them, you know, like you said, it doesn't overwhelm people if there's three questions that you're answering at that daily meeting, then it does cover everything, right?
Well,
like
it does, and look. You can ensure that all markets are understood then and managed effectively. Like, you know, Killarney is a tough market. You know, it keeps you honest. Because if you have to run the hotel for one particular guest, you won't last very long. And then throw in the locals who own the hotel. You know, it's a different kettle of fish. And Muckross is kind of reflective of Killarney itself. Like sometimes, some days you can feel that there's several different businesses and within the same hour. So like our approach is to embrace that mix rather than fight it. And like again, it goes back to communication, not to labour that point, but we help teams understand the story behind each segment. You know, like leisure guests, you know, they drive length of stay and reputation. Golf segment, tour groups, they're seasonal, but they bring volume, and you know they come at a particular time of the year. And of course, weddings would be a huge market for us. And you know, the wedding just bring deep emotion, massive expectation, and of course, huge repeat and domestic business. And of course, it also leads to long-term, you know, special occasion business. Like it's not uncommon for me to sign 20 to 25 welcome notes, welcoming people back for their anniversaries who got married here 30 years ago. You know, so. And also the wedding market has evolved in recent years, where if you consider the fact that over 50% of Irish weddings now have their ceremonies in the hotel. So that drives huge incremental business, and we see weddings that are lasting 2 or 3 days now with post-wedding barbecues. So like it's a very important market for us here at Muckross. And then obviously all of us depend heavily on the high-end international guest, which brings, you know, for and all our properties. And you know, recently in Killarney, and no more so than the rest of the country, strong dollar has been hugely important and beneficial. Obviously we've inflationary issues in this country like elsewhere, but the strength of the dollar has meant that, say, a €50 steak, while it's expensive to the Irish market, represents exceptional value for the North American guest. So listen, no one segment is better than another. Although balancing them doesn't always go perfectly, and it'd be remiss of me to say it's all smooth sailing, you know, particularly in a hotel like Muckross. And I suppose I'd look back before Christmas. The week before Christmas, we hosted a large GA event for big award ceremony for 300 guests. You know, black tie, high spirits. Week before Christmas, free bar. And one time we were welcoming a couple celebrating their 20th wedding anniversary, who were arriving in Killarney and Muckus looking for peace and tranquility, all of that brings. But I can confirm that 300 thirsty GAA players in tuxedos don't appear in most spa brochures. So look, that happens. That one was on us, but that's where, service recovery kicks in, and that's a critical part of all our businesses. And, the couple we're looking after, and we're very understanding, and, they'll be back booking directly with me this time, and we'll be back on a more quieter weekend. So listen, ultimately my role, Amanda, is about creating alignment. And when people understand the mix, feel empowered, and know what they do matters, I think we have a very simple business, really. Financial results then tend to look after themselves. That's at least until the next bill from Irish Water arrives. That's another webinar.
That's definitely we let Tina and Cynthia know.
Don't know if marketing can help with that one, Gareth.
Digital concierge.
You might.
A few more room nights, Seamus.
Yeah, exactly.
But interesting, like I love what you said at the beginning, Gareth, about kind of getting out of your team's way, like supporting them and helping them, but empowering them to actually to do their job. And I love that, like, the story behind the segment. I think that's so important for the team to understand who the guest is, and the different motivations and the different needs of them. You did, and this is the healthy tension, the GA, and then the GA group, and then that couple looking for peace and tranquility. So absolutely, in terms of the segments, and I guess, Vanessa, I might come to you for this question, because I know from experience, sometimes this is where it lands, is when you get that inquiry from your sales and marketing team, and maybe the rate isn't where you want it to be, or maybe it's not the right month, or in inverted commas, or the right day of week. I guess in Glenloe, how does that process work? Is that a conversation amongst the team around that kind of market mix? Because look, we do want, obviously, commercial success, but conscious that maybe that tension can be very real sometimes.
Yeah, and I suppose in Glenloe, I'm quite lucky because I look after the weddings and events departments as well. So I'm not battling with a sales manager who wants their wedding in on this particular date because they have a target. It's very much a bigger picture. So you are looking, and somebody might want to have an event on the 20th of June, but really we want it on the 27th. And it's not being afraid to say no if it doesn't fit in, if that leisure guest that Gar spoke about, is coming on a busy weekend. Like, it's not, you shouldn't be afraid to say no anymore, and to see what works, instead of going into a service recovery if a piece of business is wrong, taking it anyway just to get it on the books. So it's about offering different dates, not always saying no straight away, but have you flexibility on your dates, and straight away offering alternative dates, and just looking to make sure if it's like, there is nothing worse than a full hotel with the wrong business.
Not everyone is your guest.
Yeah. And I think especially when you're in the luxury leisure market, there's definitely, I describe Glenloe as two different hotels. For 6 months of the year we're one hotel, and 6 months of the year we're another hotel, and you might not see a domestic guest with us for the summer. Whereas this time of year it's all domestic guests. So it's getting that balance correct. It's getting your tour groups correct. How many of them do you accept? I know we kind of were speaking among ourselves earlier, and there is a big change in that shift of the tour business, especially for this year. And will it change for 27? And, do you take a little bit more risk now? Do you maybe take the tour you wouldn't have because there is a high level of wash? It's all those decisions. It's, kind of thinking outside the box instead of sitting and looking at pace, or saying this is what we did last year and this is what we need to replace it with. Did that piece of business really work for us last year, and do we actually need to replace it with the same?
Yeah, so it's taking more that long-term approach, I guess, like you said, and looking at more the big picture. And I guess, like, Louise, from your perspective, like, you've spoken about the sales team, and and giving them the data to help inform their decisions. It is very much a long-term approach. Like, you've spoken about a 3 to 5 year sales plan. And, I think we particularly, and I know we're still talking about it, but post-COVID, we were very much reactive and in the short term. And I think that's changing now. I think properties are looking more long-term. As dynamic as the environment is and uncertain, I think hotels that are maybe looking a bit more long term are the ones that, will be ready for the shift change or
Well, we definitely have to look long term, and long term is 3 to 5 years because everything is so dynamic and things
Yeah.
do change so quickly. But we are a hotel that is dependent, like a lot of hotels in Ireland, we're dependent on one particular market.
Sure.
There's diversification inside in that market that we're looking at as well. So we may have, or other hotels may have a particular type of guest. That doesn't mean that there isn't another type of guest or another avenue inside in the same market that they haven't explored that they could. And
Sure.
maybe it's tweaking some of the offerings or expanding slightly should capital investment allow to be able to reach into that. So you already have your inroads there. You're just talking to it in a different way. But also going back to the data that you have, are you seeing anything that says, hold on, South America is somewhere that I've seen a continuous increase year on year on year, or the Australian market is now really starting to peak, and investigate it just a little bit further. And then do a bit more of your macro research to say, okay, what could it look like? Is there new routes coming on? If you have contacts inside the airlines or anywhere else that's saying, actually, you know what, in 3 years there's already talks. We're going to be able to connect through here to make it easier to get to a destination. And as a destination or as a traveler inside in that location, this is now what I'm looking for. Does that sing to what my property is now? And does it sing to what my property is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years? Because we're always looking, we're always investing in our product. We want to be moving the dial and moving forward.
Right.
So it makes sense that both are looked at in tandem, and the data is there to just help back it up. It's to sense check it. It can set you on your way, and it can then come back to, hold on, let's triple check that again. So it is really important for our sales teams, and again, we pull our reports as often as we can. We go monthly, quarterly. If we see something that's spiked or we start to notice a trend, it's flagged to keep a monitor on and see, did that work out, did it not? And like Vanessa, you really can't be afraid to say no. If it's the wrong piece of business, absolutely walk away, because it does have a trickle-down effect back into your brand, what you stand for, your pricing, and then overall look and feel, because those leisure guests that might be in when you've got another group that you were so afraid at the time, like, I'll take it, that brand reputation is affected. And all you need is the wrong type of guest to be there with a very influential travel advisor or somebody who has booked through that channel, and all of a sudden that reputation is out there to be like, oh, I'm not quite sure summer is the way to go here. This is my experience. And
and I think and it's very dependent, and it's going to be very dependent on on your market, on where your hotel is located. But like you said, and like Garrett alluded to as well, it's having the confidence in your team, and the team aware of the story behind each of the segments as well.
It's huge. The storytelling that we need to put into our back of house is just as much as we put into our front of house for a guest, and the story of where our business is coming from, how you impact it, what it tells us, how we're all working together and moving the dial and moving forward is hugely important. And it does need to be broken down into bite-sized pieces, like Garrett said, and really manageable pieces and useful pieces of information, because there is so much information. We are inundated with spreadsheets and systems and data, and it tells us a myriad of different things. But in some instances, we need to sense check them against other ones. Like if we get our STR and then we look and see what Fulcha has sent out, and are the occupancy trends the same versus what I'm seeing versus my comp set on the website, do those align to give us the same picture? And what is that telling the rest of the business? I can be there and sit down to great ADR, but my RevPAR is absolutely tanked.
And it's I think it's leaning into and leveraging the macro piece as well.
Very
because,
much.
we are looking at the likes of Fulcha Ireland, Tourism Ireland, ITIC, IHF. I mean, they're all doing amazing work in terms of analysis and research. So I think if you want to give your numbers some context, I think all of those areas are there. Just because I'm conscious of time, I'm just going to maybe just kind of a quick one in terms of for each of the panelists. And look, this is obviously in your own properties, but just wondering, is there optimism or caution for the next 12 months? Garrett, I might start with you. Optimistic or cautious? Or cautiously optimistic?
Well, I'm an optimist by nature, so we'll always be optimistic. But I do think that, and I know we spoke about it previously, there is concern about the North American market, whether that's going to slow. And I think we can get caught up in the dramas and the soap operas. But I suppose if you look at the fundamentals of the world economy at the moment, and you see where, gold and silver are moving in a way that would indicate that there is uncertainty. And, while Fort Ireland and Tourism Ireland, particularly internationally, do great work, and all the hotels here that do great, are great ambassadors for industry abroad, and Ireland has a far reach. But the dollar has been of huge benefit in recent years, so seeing that depreciate in value is concerning to me. You're always going to have that luxury high-end traveller that will almost proof, but all of us are aware of the once in a lifetime tourists that we get from destinations where they're coming for, to visit the ancestry. They might be a bit more cautious this year. That's the only the caution I'd have. But I think all of our businesses are, well regarded, and domestically there's a lot of money on deposit in Ireland as well. So that might even out as well. And as Louise said, there's a lot of different markets as well that are emerging. So I'd be cautiously optimistic, but I would hope to see the American market is our bread and butter. Let's be clear about that. So that's the only concern I'd have. And you look around the rest of the continent, and travel advisors are feeding back as well. Weather and climate is also a huge boon for Ireland. We've seen a lot of weather events over the past 18 months, 2 years in flooding in Spain. So Ireland is still seen as a very safe destination. And I suppose the hard work and over many years that I've referred to give reassurance to all those travel advisors. Easier for them to book Ireland, and so that's I'd end with cautious optimism, but at the same time, slightly concerned, and I'd welcome to hear anyone else's thoughts on that.
Yeah, Seamus, cautious or optimistic for the next 12 months?
I'm an eternal optimist anyway, so I'm marketing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Would I say anything else, Gareth, to be honest with you? Look, I'm super optimist, because I'm going to quote our director of sales, Karen Fleming, and that she always, when you were talking about a competitive luxury market here in Ireland, we always kind of a view of co-opetition, right? So everybody on this call right now, we're all working to kind of tell that one story to make Ireland as attractive as possible. Okay. And that's working together to build that story and build that offering kind of collectively. So we get that collective kind of message out there in terms of open, welcome Ireland. And then also having the instruments then like Tourism Ireland, Fáilte Ireland working hand in hand there as well. So in terms of who I know who are out there working in hotels, I'm very optimistic, because I think we're very innovative, and I think we're at the forefront of hospitality in the world anyway here in Ireland in terms of hotels. So in terms of being innovative and pushing that forward, I think we're always going to see success. And then the other side of it, then I think in terms of Ireland, in terms of like the macroeconomics, I think we're small enough and flexible enough as a country economically to be able to kind of probably change or adapt to those external forces probably quicker than other countries can as well. And we've kind of seen that in other things that have come our way over the last number of years as well. Not to mention that Pascal is in a pretty good position there now at the moment. Of, world economics, so hopefully we'll always be in the know on that front as well. So I think for all those kind of reasons, not to mention everybody's skill set that I know they all have out there as well, I think we're well positioned to kind of continue to grow and succeed in terms of the hospitality space. Yeah.
Lovely, yeah. Give me a very warm, fuzzy feeling there now, Seamus. So you absolutely marketing.
Much better already.
Everybody in the rain.
Much better. Vanessa, are you going to bring us back to earth? Cautious or optimistic?
I think it'll be I think it's going to be a very different year. I think it's going to be, short lead times, not what we're used to. But I am optimistic for it as well.
Brilliant. Okay, lovely. Louise, and literally you've literally 30 seconds. Cautious.
30 seconds. I'm more like Gareth. I'm cautiously optimistic. And what I think it will come down to is we know about shorter lead times, and we are seeing that. I think that is going to be the way it's going to go this year. But I think our distribution strategy will be something that each property, if I can give a takeaway, should look at. And should be really robust, and that's where we'll be able to pivot to pick up if we're not able to pick it up through our traditional channels. So really having a look at where we're available, how we're available, are we easy to book? Are we easy to do
Yes.
business with?
Oh,
Will be
completely. Yeah. Be
that's
guest,
my nugget.
yeah, guest centric all the way from
All the way.
from inspiration right through to the post
Yeah.
stay. Be guest centric, easy to business with. I'm not sure if there's any questions in the chat. We might. I'm not sure, Cynthia or Kira, if you can see. I can't
No,
see the Q&A.
there's no questions at all.
Okay. Well,
A quiet room.
It's
even it
because
means
we've
there was-
answered everything there is.
There's
no-
covered it all.
You know?
Well, it's interesting. And look, I think definitely the conversation, and I know we could talk a lot on this, because I think the conversation definitely proved that it isn't about, and you've all spoken about it, doesn't live in spreadsheets, commercial strategy. It lives in conversation, alignment, and sometimes healthy disagreement, but again, not a bad thing. So super. Thank you, everyone, for your insights. We could continue this conversation, maybe over a cup of coffee or a pint, Killarney.
Exactly, yeah.
But thank you. I'll hand over to Kira to
Okay.
close it. Yeah.
I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everybody. I think from my perspective in HR, it was really interesting to hear all the team involvement,
Yeah.
because I think sometimes commercial strategy just hasn't always led to that. So it's great to see that shift over the last number of years. Seamus, Gareth, Vanessa, Louise, thank you so much. It has been great to hear from you. And Amanda, thank you so much as always for chairing. There's some really interesting highlights and useful highlights that I think everybody can get a bit from. Thank you to everybody who joined us this morning. It's been great to virtually see the names. And again, if there was any questions afterwards or anything like that, just drop anybody an email. Again, I don't know whether we'll be doing a water charges webinar, but as was suggested. But look, if anybody has any ideas in relation to webinars, don't hesitate to contact us. And I suppose I look forward to meeting you all throughout the year, and as many events, and to keep an eye on our socials, which again, as the panel has mentioned, is really important from the social media element. So thank you so much for your time this morning, and we'll hopefully see you soon.
Excellent. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye.